Hey Lighthouse teens, it's your girl Crystal Alexis and welcome to week 3 of a series called Bittersweet. Listen, we've created a space here at Lighthouse, guys, for you to come and get out all of those hurt feelings because healing and forgiveness is gonna take time. I know we're in a microwave generation or a popcorn generation, whatever you wanna call it, where we want everything fast. We want our stuff to come to our door. We don't want to go shopping. We want to shop through Amazon. We want stuff to be fast. We don't want to cook a meal. We want to go get fast food. But forgiveness is not like that. Forgiveness is going to take you some time. So stay tuned because we're going to find out how.
Okay, be honest. Have you ever given up on something because it just took too much time? I do that all the time. Like if my phone takes more than 10 seconds to load a video, it is time for a new phone. Or if popcorn takes more than 3 minutes to make, I will choose a different snack. Or like stand in an actual line to get food, no thank you, I will mobile order and pick it up as soon as I get there. Like we're just not good at things that take a long time. And that's why we have fast food and microwave popcorn and high-speed internet and Amazon Prime. Like we like things to happen quickly, and that is good in most areas of life. Like I'm never gonna disagree with having instant noodles, but there are some really important areas of our life where our need for speed just might hurt us. And one of those areas is forgiveness. For the past couple of weeks, we have been talking about this idea of forgiveness. We have talked about how at first it can feel sweet to hold on to bitterness, but we learned that bitterness is actually harmful, and holding on to bitterness and resentment actually hurts you more than it hurts the person that you're upset with. Then last week, we talked about how much we have been forgiven and need to learn how to forgive ourselves and others by canceling the debt or the wrongs, not the person. And while all of this is true, what's also true is this simple fact. Most of us have tried forgiveness and it didn't seem to work. Like maybe you decided to forgive your sibling, but every time you think about what they did, you get angry. Or maybe an ex-girlfriend or an ex-boyfriend or an ex-friend just keeps popping up in your life. And while you decided to forgive them, you still kind of want to tell the world all the awful things they did to you. Or think about a time in your own life that you needed to forgive someone for something, small or large. Think about it, get it in your mind. We have all said something like, I just can't forgive that person, or I tried to forgive them, but it didn't work because I'm still so hurt. Because like anything else in our life, we want results immediately. When it comes to forgiveness, we want to feel better now. See, this is true if you're the one doing the forgiving, right? You don't want to be hurt anymore. You don't want to be angry anymore. You don't want that feeling in the pit of your stomach every time you remember what was done. You just want it to go away. But this is also true if you're the one who did something wrong and needs to be forgiven, when you're waiting for someone to forgive you. Like you want your mom to move on, you want your dad to stop giving you the silent treatment, you want your friend to stop being angry with you. You just want their forgiveness, and sometimes that takes time too. And when we decide to forgive and don't get the instant results, we all tend to think the same thing. It just didn't work, right? Forgiveness doesn't work. Like we start thinking like, you know what, the best thing I can do with the worst stuff that happens to me is clearly not forgiveness because that clearly didn't work, right? The question is though, what do you do now when you have tried something and it didn't seem to work? Like, do you have other options? And like, if you gave forgiveness a shot and you still don't feel any better, should you just give up on the idea of forgiveness altogether? Well, today I want to look at a story from the very first book of the Bible called Genesis. And today we're going to look at a story about a guy named Joseph, okay? The story of Joseph's life is actually a long story filled with tons of smaller stories and plot twists, and I'm going to walk through a few of them today. See, Joseph had the kind of life where one thing after another happened to him. Okay, so we're gonna explore the story of Joseph. Joseph was the youngest of 11 brothers, and he happened to be his dad's favorite. He even had a special brightly colored coat that he would wear, right? This was a gift from their dad, and the special coat would remind his brothers that Joseph was their dad's favorite kid. See, when Joseph was 17 years old, he had a dream that his older brothers would bow down to him. And then he had another dream that his older brothers and his parents would bow down to him. Of course, when he told his brothers about this dream, it ticked them off even more, and their hatred for him grew to the point that they plotted to kill their own baby brother. Guys, there's so much drama in the story. You're gonna have to check it out on your own. I can't get through all the details. It's in Genesis chapter 37, okay? But long story short, for this part of Joseph's life, basically, he ends up getting sold and enslaved to the Egyptians, not killed, okay? Then, through a series of unfortunate life events, Joseph was framed, okay? Framed and put into prison. Okay, but then, time and time again, the writer of Genesis tells us that God was with Joseph. And so Joseph prospered, or he succeeded in whatever he did, even in prison. Fast forward a little bit more, and Joseph, while in prison, was able to interpret or explain the dreams of two other prisoners. One of those prisoners was this guy who actually worked for the king. He was the king's right-hand man, and his role was to be a cupbearer, right? He's the guy responsible for making sure that no one poisons the king's drink. Yeah, I don't know what he was doing in jail, who knows, okay? But fast forward another 2 years, and Pharaoh, the guy in charge of all of Egypt, has a dream, okay? Remember, Joseph can interpret dreams, and so remember the cupbearer? Well, the cupbearer, who is now out of prison, remembered Joseph's ability to explain dreams, and so Pharaoh called Joseph out of prison so that Joe could tell him all about what his dream meant. All right, so once again, we see Joseph winning, right? Because he was able to accurately explain the dream to Pharaoh. And what was happening in the dream basically was that the whole land was in danger of running out of food and having a famine for several years, okay? So Joseph tells the king, like, hey, this is what your dream meant, okay? And so Pharaoh was really impressed with his great wisdom. And so he put Joseph in charge of all the land, second only to Pharaoh himself. So you've got Pharaoh and then you've got Joseph. Okay, we're still in Joseph's story. Fast forward a lot. 22 years after selling Joseph into slavery, his brothers come to Egypt in search of food, okay? Because where they were, there was a famine. And so they had to come to Egypt to search for food. And Joseph recognized them. He saw his brothers and knew they were his brothers. But they thought Joseph was dead this whole time, so they didn't recognize him. Okay, so after a series of tests that Joseph puts his brothers through, they had to pass all these tests, Joseph finally tells his brothers who he is, okay? So that's where we're picking up the story right now. Okay, then Joseph said to his brothers, "Come close to me." When they had done so, he said, "I am your brother Joseph, the one you sold into Egypt. And now, do not be distressed and do not be angry with yourselves for selling me here, because it was to save lives that God sent me ahead of you." Joseph went through some crazy experiences in those 22 years, being hated by his siblings, being sold into slavery, being framed, going to prison, and then yes, ultimately finally in charge of Egypt, right? We see the happy ending when he's reunited with his family, but honestly, if it were me, knowing I'd gone through all of that because of what my brothers did to me, it would have taken a long time to get to a place of happiness. Like if I went through everything Joseph had gone through, I'd be pretty angry and bitter at my brothers for selling me in the first place. And I'm guessing that if I were in power and my brother showed up asking me for help after selling me, I would have kicked them to the curb. But I am not Joseph, okay? Ultimately, over time, we see Joseph make the best out of the worst situations. Joseph shows us that healing takes time. There isn't a quick fix. There is no feel better when you forgive. There's no immediate reward. There's no way to get your emotions to follow what you know is true deep down. There's no way to make it all immediately better for you or for someone else. Forgiveness takes time. So if you've hurt someone and they can't let it go, and you're starting to get frustrated with how much they keep hanging it over your head, and you're like, I said I'm sorry, okay? Listen, give them a break, because forgiveness takes time. Healing takes time. And honestly, we just don't get to decide how quickly someone gets over a hurt. And in the same way, If you've been hurt by someone in your family or a friend, or something happened and you can't seem to move on as quickly as you would like, give yourself a break, because forgiveness takes time. Okay, so we looked at Joseph's story. That happens way back in the Old Testament. Fast forward a whole lot more. We're now in the New Testament because I want to tell you kind of about this conversation that happened between Jesus and one of his closest followers, Peter. See, Peter asked Jesus a question. He said, "Lord, how often should I forgive someone who sins against me? 7 times? No, not 7 times, Jesus replied, but 70 times 7. See, Jesus wasn't specifying 490 times exactly. It's not really for us to do the math and count, but he knew that when we would try forgiveness, it wouldn't always stick for us, right? We forgive, but then we pick back up our bitterness towards the other person. Jesus teaches us to keep forgiving as long as you need to, until your emotions catch up with your decision, until the hurt starts to hurt a little less. You keep forgiving over and over until you start to feel it. And for some of you, this is good news, okay? Because you finally have permission to not be okay immediately, right? You're not broken for saying, I forgave them, why am I still upset? No, you have permission to not be okay immediately. But for others of you, this might not be great news. Maybe it sounds depressing, because you want nothing more than for someone to get over what you did to them. You want a quick fix. You want the answer to be, just forgive 7 times, right? It would be a lot easier if this was how forgiveness worked. But Jesus doesn't want forgiveness to be something that meets a checklist requirement in our lives. He wants something to happen in our hearts. He wants us to be healthy emotionally and mentally. He wants us to have healthy relationships. That's why he tells us to forgive as many times as we need to until we've healed. In fact, maybe forgiveness isn't a decision after all. Maybe it's not a single event, but maybe it's more of a heart posture, an attitude, a condition that changes our perspective over time. It's not something you can mark on the calendar, but it is something that can bring healing over time and change over time. And this is a good place for us to kind of stop and have a little bit of a heart-to-heart and be really clear about something. I'm not talking about allowing someone, even if that someone is yourself, to repeatedly hurt, mistreat, or abuse you, okay? Because you matter so much, and there are so many people who care about you. So I want you to hear right now that this is your permission and encouragement to talk to a trusted adult if you're going through anything painful. Like, you don't have to carry that on your own. Okay, let's be honest about forgiveness. We want forgiveness and healing to work like an antibiotic, right? It would be so much easier if we were able to take a 7-day prescription and then we're cured. But healing and forgiveness are honestly more like recovering from a big injury than taking a dose of medicine. I want to kind of show you what I mean by that. So hold on one second. See, when we're hurt or offended or angered by people, it takes time to heal. All healing takes time. And something small like your friend forgetting to text you back that one time, right? It may cause a little nick, and it can probably be covered with a small bandage, right? But even that takes a little bit of time to heal. You have to at least go to them and have a conversation and say like, hey, you didn't text me back. I felt some kind of way about it. You have to have that discussion. But you're annoyed for a few minutes, but when you mention it, you clear it up and you are able to forgive and move forward. It's all healed. But there are other kinds of offenses, right? Your parent misses your big game, or that one friend betrays you by telling your secret and changing the way other people think about you, or someone broke a promise to you and you're hurt and you're angry and you're confused and you're trying to get over it, but you can't stop replaying it over and over in your mind, right? Those offenses are like deep wounds or broken bones. And they take time to heal. They take challenging conversations. They take repeated, over and over, clear communication. They take prayer and time with God. They take all kinds of time to make sure that you're working on actual forgiveness. This is no small injury, right? These kind of injuries take time to heal. They take challenging conversations. They take repeated, clear communication. They take prayer and time with God. They take time to heal because forgiveness takes time. You have weeks of recovery. You go back in for checkups, and sometimes your body isn't getting better as fast as you want or even as the doctor wants. So you're told not to lift anything for a while. You're told you have to stay inside on the couch for a bit longer. You're told you can't text as fast or play video games for a while. But eventually you go in and you go for a normal checkup, and over time, the doctor tells you, hey, you can actually start lifting things again. You can actually start texting again and playing and going outside and doing all those things because healing takes time. But trust me, time will provide healing. Okay, I know it can be hard to hear. Dealing with healing and pain are not always easy, but I want you to hear this. There is hope. Even if this isn't exactly what you wanted to hear, take heart and be encouraged. There's always a way forward. You can forgive and you can find freedom from bitterness. Even if you were hoping for forgiveness and healing to go faster, at least knowing what to expect can make it a little bit easier as you work your way through. And you'll get through it if you trust God to be with you and guide you along the way. And okay, I don't want this to sound like just a little Band-Aid fix for actual real hurt. So let's talk about some actual steps that you can take. Chances are you've had someone or a few people come to mind these past couple of weeks as we've talked about forgiveness. There's been a situation in your mind or on your heart. Let's think about that for a second, okay? Because I want you to know it's okay if you're still working your way through the 70 times 7 of forgiveness. But it's also important that you keep making healing a priority, to keep forgiving again and again until it finally works as many times as it takes. How do you do that? Well, it's not complicated, but it will be challenging. Here are 3 steps you can take to begin to fully forgive someone. And y'all, I told you it's gonna be challenging, okay? So hear me out, but I know you can do this. The first thing you wanna do is pray for the person who hurt you. And I know that sounds so basic, but I promise you, praying for the best interest of that person will eventually change the way you think of them and even change your feelings towards them. And I know it's hard, so if you can't do that yet, I want you to just start by being honest with God about how you feel about them and ask God to change their heart and to work on your heart. Yes, you can even start the prayers just saying, Jesus, I am so hurt and so angry. I don't really see what you're doing. You can be as honest as you really want with God because He can handle your real thoughts. All right, so the first thing you're gonna do is pray for them. And the second thing you're gonna do, again, not easy, you're gonna serve them. And I know this sounds like a terrible idea. Yes, it's gonna go against every instinct that you have, but it will also pave the way toward forgiveness. It'll soften your heart towards them. And you may even start to dislike them a little bit less. Okay, so serving them, you're like, what does that even mean? Well, maybe serving them looks like you just remember them, right? You remember to make sure that they're not left out of the group text or the weekend plans, right? Serving could look like making sure that they remembered, hey, there's a test today in 3rd period. Like, you don't have to remind them of that, but maybe that's one small way of serving them. You can think of plenty of ways to serve that kind of stretch you to work out your forgiveness. Only you can kind of know what that is. And listen, if it's not safe to serve them in person, or even if it's not wise for the relationship to continue, if part of your forgiveness process means setting up boundaries, maybe serving them looks like you just remind yourself that they are more than their mistakes and bad decisions. And the 3rd step is finally this. Repeat. Repeat praying for them and repeat serving them over and over. Pray, serve, repeat. Pray, serve, repeat, and keep doing that, okay? These are the best ways to work toward forgiveness. This is how you make your way through the 70 times 7. This is how you heal, not with revenge, not with anger, not with bitterness, not with trying to just forget about it, because that doesn't work, but by forgiving over and over again. And if it sounds difficult, you are right. Like I said, it's not easy, but this is the way forward. You don't want to stay where you are, right? And not only that, if we are the one who needs to be forgiven, isn't this what we would want from someone else? But more than that, we need to remember this. Ultimately, forgiveness isn't about the other person at all. It's actually about you. It's about what's best for you. It's about becoming the person your Heavenly Father has created you to be, a person who is free from bitterness or resentment. So, as we wrap up this series, I want you to think about forgiveness in your own relationships. What's holding you back? What would it take to begin forgiving? What haven't you been able to forgive yet? Let's just be honest about that. What would it take for you to move forward and become who God wants you to be? Healthy and whole, not bitter and hurt. So make a decision this week to make forgiveness, like true forgiveness, a reality in your life.
Whew. Y'all, I had some real ouch moments during that lesson. It is so hard for me to forgive certain things, but what I learned and what you should have learned is there's 3 steps. First, you're gonna pray for that person that caused you pain and hurt. Secondly, I know it's hard, y'all, but serve them. Ask them, is there anything you could do to help them out? Do them a favor without them even asking. And then third step is you're gonna repeat steps 1 and 2. Pray and serve. That's all you gotta do. Listen, God does not want you to make forgiveness something that you check off the checklist. He wants to make a lifestyle change in your life. So today, you can make that first step to start on your journey to healing and forgiveness. But when you do that, don't forget to come back here every single Sunday, the same time, same day, same place. Hit that thumbs up button and smash that subscribe button because we want to see you back here and we don't want you to miss any of our content. So thank y'all so much for joining us for week 3 of Bittersweet, and we'll see you next week.